Yeah,
something like that
I
could be done.
mean, and of course, I mean, right now it's like, God, dude, that's where do we even begin? It's like, I mean, do we talk about the taco tyrant, or I mean, the tangerine tyrant and sitting in the White House? I mean,
Man, that's
uh,
that's a loaded conversation, brother. That definitely is something that needs a lot of man. What can we even say about that?
I mean. So it's like right now it's like, oh well, the Strait of Hormuz is open and the Strait of Hormuz is closed. I mean, okay, so even going back to and this is what I obviously, I mean, we all just hear things and and whatever, right? But from what I heard and saw, but do you know where he even got the whole tariff thing from?
Like to tariff countries,
No, no,
period.
no. The whole idea, like when he was campaigning, like the whole tariff,
Yeah.
thing. Apparently, so he basically asked Jerry Kushner. He's like, "Hey, I need something to stand, for my platform." When he was running,
Jeez.
and Jerry Kushner basically apparently read some book, written by
Yeah,
some
that's
guy.
right. That's right.
Uh,
It was like some failed author.
yes, a failed
Uh,
author on
the
Amazon,
same
and
guy I
then
believe that helped him with Project 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
yep. Yeah. And it turned out that basically that dude just made up a bunch of shit. So the whole tariff thing wasn't even actually a proven thing. It was just some BS that this guy just wrote and made it look good on Amazon.
Yeah.
And we all have to suffer from it.
It was all speculative.
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely. You're right about that. And it's funny because he did try the tariffs on his first term, tried it on his
Yeah.
second term. And, frankly speaking, it's not something that ever worked. I mean, even in the case of the
Yeah.
farmers, he put the tariffs, China stopped buying soybeans and other products, and we ended up just basically bailing out the farmers. So,
Well, see, and okay, so talking about the farmers, here's what's interesting is I always wondered why the hell the farmers would want to vote for Trump, right? And I'm beginning to start to think it's because of the fact that so basically when all the immigration policies came out, they rolled back the protections for immigration, for these workers, right? So essentially now you don't have to pay them the same wage, you can pay them a lot less. And not only that, now they've essentially got a whole workforce that's pretty much for state-sponsored slave labor.
100%.
Essentially. Because I mean, and honestly, if you're talking about you want to deport so many people, then why aren't you just deporting them? Why are we holding on to 175,000 or so how many ever 100,000 people in jail? You know, and these guys have no due process. They're basically being held behind bars, and then what? Like they're made to work at these facilities for really $0.
Yeah.
And on top of that, these for-profit prisons are basically getting, like 150 or $200 or whatever it is per prisoner from the U.S. government every day.
I agree. I agree. It's insane to me because the biggest contributors, I would say, even of like illegal immigrants and whatever else, are the same corporations that we're bailing out.
Yeah,
It makes no sense, because we always, for some reason, we always glaze these large corporations, and we always say, man, these guys are, they give so many jobs, they do this and they do that,
yeah,
and it's by workforce. These guys are really hiring the most illegals out there, but
yeah. Because
you know.
otherwise it makes no sense to me whatsoever why the farmers would ever even want these policies to begin with. I mean, if you think about it, the soybean farmer, for example, right? I mean, the soybean farmer was double screwed because not only did these tariffs make it so that they couldn't even export any of their soybeans. All of a sudden, what was it, the China market and everything went to Venezuela.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Trump basically sent like billions of dollars to support their fucking soybean market when our soybean market was like totally just, fucked. Like, I mean, it's like, so why would you even do, like, and all these farmers are now realizing, oh shit, like, it hasn't exactly worked out for us.
No, 100%, it hasn't. And that's even now. I mean, speaking of farmers, right? Where when you see what's going on right now with the fertilizer situation, It's China
Yeah,
basically has refused to export any more fertilizer out, and they're
yeah,
pretty much just like, all right, dude, you're gonna try to f us. Well, we're just gonna get back at you. So
yeah.
it's really
And
crazy how honestly it's like a dog chasing its tail at this point.
yeah, and honestly, like we haven't even seen the worst of this whole blockade thing because once the actual farming season's out and we realize how much shortage we have, then we're gonna really start to feel it.
I agree. By the way, did you hear about the environmental weather? There was like the droughts that they were doing in Iran. Did you hear about that?
No, what's going on with
So
that?
so basically there was a so during the war, which obviously now I think it's over a little over a month and a half, 2 months or whatever. Iran had destroyed some radars and some other devices and whatever else that were in the Gulf countries. After
Mhm.
that has happened, Iran is currently like raining, it's snowing, the Euphrates River is full, the waterfalls are like gushing in Iran now. There's speculation that there was weather warfare that was going on from the U.S. And what they were doing is they were
Really?
basically shooting up elements or whatever in the sky above the Iran region that was causing the drought. So Iran has been under droughts for like the past 45 years. Water shortages and everything else, and now all of a sudden, all the damage has been done, and now it's water is back.
Well, it might have to do something with UAE because UAE was actually harvesting clouds.
Yeah,
I mean they've been
100%,
doing that. Yeah.
100%.
So I
Yeah.
think they basically decided to like turn it over, shift it over to Iran. Which honestly, I mean, if we have that technology, why don't we just put that in the fucking Midwest? Like El Paso and the desert areas.
Yeah, we'll
I
take
mean
that
that
shit in
would be
California. I mean, damn, man, a
yeah.
water bill goes up. They tell us conserve. They had us on a tier system where it's like you're using this much water, so you're in this tier because we're going into a drought, which I never understood because, frankly, it's there's something interesting. I want to parallel this cash to the water for agriculture, for farming, but then also to AI. So, the big thing that you probably I hear all the time is people say AI sucks because of all the water that it uses. And people don't understand that the water is cooling the servers and whatever else. But Cash, I want to tell you
Yeah.
some really interesting statistics you probably already know. So, for one chat GPT inquiry, for example, if you ask it a question, that
Mhm.
uses 0.005 gallons of energy, right, to cool down the servers. But
Huh.
I want to say in the same breath that one almond it takes approximately 1 gallon to produce. One pistachio requires zero point 0.8 gallons. One walnut is 4 to 5 gallons. One orange is 12 to 15 gallons. One
Damn.
apple is 18 to 25 gallons, and one avocado, Cash. Do you want to guess how much water that uses for one avocado?
30 gallons.
60 to 80 gallons, my friend.
Damn, dude. That's
That's
insane.
that is right. So basically, what that equates to is you would need AI to ask you would need to ask AI approximately 3 to 10,000 questions to equal the use of water for one avocado.
Or create a full length feature film or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy to me because there's a really interesting documentary that came on Netflix, and it's called the California Heist, if I remember. And it's interesting because it talks about a bunch of backdoor deals that were made behind closed doors in like hotel ballrooms
Yeah.
between the pistachio and the almond guys, and how they're taking public resources for their own private lands to grow their crops and nuts and
Yeah.
whatever else. And it's nuts because like usual, the U.S. Person gets sold out. We pay taxes, and then that gets sold out and then resold to the other sides, which is absolutely insane to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's wow. That's I wouldn't even think that I mean, AI requires water. I mean, but yeah, that's insane. And I mean, most of these deals are made behind closed doors. That's a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
You
big
know.
problem, big problem.
Yeah. And honestly, like if you think about it, all these farmers that say, "Oh yeah, they're losing money," that when they farm, that they have insurance. You
Correct.
know what I
That
mean?
is true.
they're collecting money still. They're not losing money necessarily.
Yep. That
You
is true.
know, yeah. So, but you know that like uh, water, power, all this stuff. I mean, dude, it's basically because they want to make money off of us. For example, like you know that Tesla actually came out with this thing that basically I, I forget what the project is. You know, I'll have that for another episode or whatever. But but basically it's unlimited power. And the reason why JP Morgan basically pulled out of it was not because it didn't work, but because it worked too well. And if you had, unlimited power, where are you gonna put the meter?
This was a very common thing back in the 80s and the 90s of fossil fuel companies just buying out or threatening a lot of these alternative energy companies. You know,
Yeah,
there was so much energy opportunities, and there was a lot of innovations, but a lot of these companies ended up getting taken out. There was actually a really famous guy, I forget what his name is, but there's many of them actually. But in one particular, there was a guy who even warned, and he says, you know, if I get taken out, it's not because of I want to, you know, it's going to be
yeah,
one of these big companies that are taking me out, and he was taken out. So, you know, it's very common for this kind of shit to happen, man, which
yeah.
is insane.
So speaking of getting taken out, you heard about that 11th scientist or 15th scientist that went missing,
Yeah,
and now she's gone, I guess.
that is true. Yeah, dude.
You know,
They're all taken out, man. Nobody knows where the hell they are. And
yeah,
the White House is saying, you know, we're going to look into it, but you know, it's definitely shady shit,
yeah,
man.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely shady.
It is.
You know,
Yeah, I'll believe they're gonna look into it. Well, whatever, dude. They're not gonna
yeah,
look into shit. You know.
yeah, no, absolutely, dude. It goes if they look into it, it's going right into a paper shredder,
Exactly.
no question.
Yeah. And I mean, and this whole dude, like, especially with the whole Epstein thing. I mean, God, that's a whole nother clusterfuck right there. You know. But it just goes to show you. I mean, like, honestly, you know what? I think that Trump was definitely involved in a lot of the blackmailing too. And I think he's still doing it or he's getting blackmailed right now.
Well, I mean,
One or the
here's a
other.
question, right, that I have for you, Cash. If you're innocent as an attorney, if someone is innocent, would they have to settle or pay hush money? I mean, honestly,
Well,
right? In your experience,
right.
have you ever seen that, or would you say, you know what, let's go to trial and bring the evidence? But when somebody has to mute the other side, I mean, what does that typically mean in law?
I mean, so I have seen it to where, it's not even worth it. If you're a high enough, like, if you're in a high profile race or something, and you just want to, like, make it go away, you would consider just settling out. But you're not gonna have juries find that you were, guilty of grape. I mean, that happened with Trump, so it's not like he's just innocent and and he's like trying to make it go away. No. And not to mention, I mean, dude, like Alan Dershowitz, I mean, is he now the attorney general? Or
I don't think he's the attorney general, but I do know that he is almost like personal counsel, man.
Yeah, well, I
Uh,
mean, like, so one of the attorneys that actually represented Trump on his cases is now the attorney general.
no way.
Um, yeah, the one who stepped in for Pam Bondi. That guy was basically represented Trump in the New York bribery case, and and a couple other things too. So, I mean, but yeah, and honestly, it's like this, man. If I was nowhere near, and honestly, like, as a criminal defense attorney, yeah, I represent, I mean, I've represented a lot of people, and obviously, but my thing is, you are innocent until proven guilty. But I will say this: if you're at home and you're nowhere around that area, they were not going to just go out and arrest you for it. You know what I mean? It's obviously because you were in an area where you might have been, like, I mean, it could be, seen that you were up to something, that you're even being named in the first place.
Mhm.
And so, having said that, I mean, like, I mean, if Trump was totally innocent, there's no reason why his name would be in the Epstein files more than, I mean, more than anybody else except for Jeffrey Epstein himself.
Yeah.
I mean, like, dude, and I after reading the Sasha after hearing the Sasha Riley interviews, I was like so sick. I mean, did you get a chance to look at any of those? Oh my God. I mean, and I'm not gonna say you should, but I mean, if you want to know how deep and how sick some of this stuff is, you should.
Wow.
Um, yeah, like no, they're talking about like how I mean, he talked about how apparently one time, and Trump like essentially wanted to like fight Sasha Riley or whatever, but he said that basically Trump went out like and they're like no, like you can't kill him, but we have some puppies for you to kill. And so he
Yeah.
basically took some puppies and like just smashed them like and just to watch them die like right in front of him like and like like intimidate Sasha Riley or whatever. And I was
Wow.
like, what the like, dude, that nobody would make
Yeah.
up shit like that. First off,
I mean, yeah.
and second off, like, yeah, he's a sadistic bastard. He basically wants to watch living life, or anything with life in it suffer, and that's why he did it. I mean, like, what kind of a monster would sit there and fucking crush puppies? And here's what's crazy is like you heard of that search term a puppy club or whatever, right?
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Like somebody mentioned it. The reason why you hear that is because after all this shit happened, somebody talked about it, and so they actually went and had a party with that fucking like that code word or that search term, so that way if anybody did search on that,
Wow.
the thing that would populate into Google was not the what happened.
Redirecting.
It's yeah, it's that party that they had.
Wow.
You know. I mean, so yeah, like the puppy. I was like, what the fuck, like sick deranged individuals, dude.
Yeah,
I
there was something
mean,
even about I don't know if you saw this one, but there was like a real pizza place in Washington D.C. and on the menu on the website, I mean, this guy was writing some like crazy stuff. What was on the menu, and he was involved with the files and being
mm,
named in there and whatever. But yeah, this guy actually had a real life pizzeria, and on his menu online, some really crazy shit where you're kind of sitting there and you're like, dude, these guys are playing in our fucking face.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and so, what, and these people who are talking about like they're eating babies, like you know where that's coming from, right?
Well, it's a lot of these. Well, no, tell me.
So on, and these are people who, like, for example, not Guthrie. What's her name? Savannah Dufresne, or
Okay.
yeah. So like the people, the victims or the survivors, not victims, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. Like she actually, one of them, she in her interview, she talked about how like she was there and like she would be raped,
Yeah.
and then like after she had a baby, they would basically take the baby away from her and like they would eat that. Like, so when they talk about pizza pies, that's what they were talking about. Like, because apparently in their satanic cult or whatever the fuck it was, they believe that and here's what's the nectar of the gods or ambrosia or whatever the fuck. Like, they felt like in order to be immortal. They needed to eat like live babies like and so
It's
they would literally
endocrine or
have
something,
these
right?
it's something like adrenochrome or whatever.
Adrenochrome, that's it.
Yeah. And so they would have these women like, trapped in there to rape them, take their babies and do whatever, create a pizza pie and eat that as part of their parties.
Yeah, that's
And
wild.
and I'm sure like half of these people like that went to Abscene's Island, they probably like they went to some party, and like and then they're like, oh well, yeah, we're gonna have like a eyes wide shut party, with like some cocaine, whatever. Here, try this, this is the and maybe they don't even know what the fuck they ate, right? But and then like 2 weeks later, they're like, well, you know what that was, right? And
Crazy.
I mean, imagine like somebody finding out and they're like, what the fuck, like. Dude, but that's what it was. It was part of their whole like ritual sacrifice thing.
Yeah. Man, that's there's even speaking of the parties, there's a whole thing about like the Bohemian rituals and whatever. There's actually a video of a guy who went to this island and he saw, it's like a large statue of Baal, or
Yeah,
whatever, and there's like torches and doing some crazy ass shit, man. So yeah, I think it gets to a point, it's a lot of the elite rich and the ultra rich. they get to this point where they kind of start feeling like they're untouchable. They can do whatever
Yeah.
the hell they want. And then they start pushing the boundaries, where they're just
Right.
because, and just to see what they can get away with. But then also, there's this whole idea that they want to be so exclusive. They want to
Yeah.
be so different. And that's where it becomes really dangerous because really, they'll stop at nothing because it's like, whatever the hell I want to do, I'm going to do it because who the fuck is going to stop me?
Yeah,
And
because
that's
they
the
feel like they're
dangerous part.
invincible. Yeah. Yeah, they started feeling like they're invincible, and they don't have to answer to anybody else. And when you've had like one of these eyes wide shut parties, and and you're like, hey, welcome to the club, and now you are invincible. It's like, dude, I mean, the fuck, like, and I mean, yeah, there's so much like, and that's just it. Is there are things in those societies and stuff like that that we will never know,
Yep.
obviously. But I mean, just like even when you said play ball, the reason why we talk is like why it's called basketball or baseball is is because of ball. You know that, right? I mean, that's why it's
I did
called
not.
that.
Wow.
Yeah. So apparently baseball is like it's got so many freaking like Masonic references and things that we don't even know. Like the diamond, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the Masonic square.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and why it's called Baal is Bahl, Baal. Like the Egyptian god. That's why we call it Baal. I mean,
Crazy.
yeah. So I mean, like and we are never gonna know the full extent, but at the same time, I think it gets to a point where people just need to like dude, I think yeah, I think I've had enough. I mean, people just need to like be like, fuck this, we're done.
That's
We're
it.
gonna go ahead and flip the script. And yeah, I mean, rise up.
That's the problem because a lot of people I think are just so caught up in their own comfort that and nothing anything else besides kind of what they do. It just becomes something that it's not my problem. Or there's this mentality that everybody has as a body, where everybody says, "Well, there's nothing that we can do about it." And I
Yeah,
talk to tons of people, Cash, that are don't like what's going on. They're sick and tired. But then the question becomes, well, what can we be doing? What can we do? It's out of our control, so fuck it, let it be. And
yeah.
that's where it becomes really dangerous, right? Because I don't know if you heard me talk about this, but there is something that I heard of that there's like this government group where they go around and they create traffic. I don't know if you heard about this or you read this before. So
No, go
there's
ahead.
there's actually people within the government. They have like some agency or whatever, but people are paid to literally drive in like peak hours around in the city and cause more traffic. And
I've
the
heard
reason why
that
they do this
before.
is because the psychology behind it is people get tired at work and then they're driving home and they want to get them so exhausted in traffic and just get their mind so pissed off that by the time they come home, they don't want to be superheroes. They're
Yeah,
exhausted. They just want to sleep. So I forget exactly what it's called, but somebody brought it up to me and I looked into it and it's true. So I invite you and anybody who's watching, definitely take a look at that.
yeah.
But it's a government agency or whatever else that these guys just go around and they create traffic. So they could
Well,
go on a lane and instead of driving like 65, these guys will drive 40 on purpose.
yeah, and so it's like there's two things that are going on. One is the people who want to change, but change something, but they don't know how, or they're just so tired that they can't. And then there's the group of like the politicians who might want to change stuff but can't because, like, for example, like Cory Booker. Perfect example. Cory Booker, when he was doing the filibuster, I was like, wait, hey man, way to go. Like, you're standing up to racism and shit, right? But he gets paid by APAC,
Yep,
and
100%.
so all of a sudden it's like, well, and so I watched one of his TikToks the other day, and I was like, with all due respect, sir, I mean, why don't you not accept the APAC money, and then maybe I'll think that you're
It's
sincere.
performative activism.
Exactly. And so and it's like, so none of these people want it to change because
They're
it benefits,
benefiting.
this status quo benefits them.
100%.
And it's like, so basically what you have is people who are really just at the ends of society who are not comfortable with any of this shit, I mean, it's almost like finding people to come over here to America and settle the Western frontier. It's like, I mean, the people who are comfortable didn't want to come here. The people who were winning didn't want to come here. They were fine in Europe.
Well,
You know,
that's where I think, to be honest with you, right? That's where I think this whole like Judeo-Christian values things comes in, because it's almost like, hey, these are our values and this is what we do. And go fuck yourself if you want to change anything, or if you want society to change, whether it's for a positive or a negative. And if
yeah,
you think about it, right, it's the whole motion of, well, this is what's supposed to be. The answer becomes, well, what if the question becomes, what if we should have improvement? What if we want something better? What if, for example, like with the large amounts of grape, what if we realize and we say, hey, you know what, maybe we shouldn't promote sex on the TV all the time. Maybe we
yeah,
shouldn't encourage aggressive porn. Maybe we shouldn't do these things. But then it becomes, well, hey, go fuck yourself. You're a barbarian, and who are you to say anything that this is wrong? And it's like, well, it's not me, dumbass, it's the data. And
yeah,
it becomes almost one of those things where it's like, well, just shut up. If you want to live here, which, it's funny because even Americans are told that if you want to live here, then you have to accept the stuff that we're showing here, whether you like it
yeah.
or not. And to me,
Right.
that's always been it's such a fallacy, but it's also so comical to me, because I'm like, dude, what kind of nonsense is this?
Well, but at the same time, you flip the script and you're like, well, in the capitalistic sense, the free market, it's like, okay, well, if the market wants something, then somebody's gonna, provide it, and you know what? It's like, why should that guy, provide it and profit from it? And it's like, well, you know what I mean? And it's like, so do we have to?
Well,
Do we have
enter
this?
the rugs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like it's like
Why can't that guy buy blow? It's kind of the same thing. We have
Well, I
we
mean,
have good and bad.
but do we want and it's like almost like the same question with crypto, right? It's like, do we want such a decentralized market, such that it kind of is free from any kind of intervention, or do we want it so heavily regulated that I mean that is stifled from decentralization and centralized.
Yep,
And yeah, I guess that's kind of like the age old question that goes to all of it. You know,
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
but it's like, dude, so get this. Did you know okay, so there's one plant that basically creates like diesel that is almost like pure diesel, like like
Wow,
actually good for your engines and everything. Industrialized hemp.
I've heard this. Yeah,
Yeah. So industrialized hemp. I mean, the reason why hemp became illegal was
you're
not because of marijuana.
not at
Well, it was
all.
because of industrialized hemp, because
Yeah,
of
I mean,
diesel.
all
Be-
paper was hemp back in the day. I mean, there
Yeah.
was a lot of uses of hemp. By the way, Cash, just want to give you a heads up, man. We're coming on 3.5 minutes remaining until my
Okay.
thing is going to click off here. So
So you know what? Hey guys, I'm gonna upload this to my channel. And Kamal, upload it to
one hundred
yours.
percent.
And hey, if you guys like this content, come on back for our future episodes. I promise we're gonna figure this out to where my head's gonna be a little bit bigger. But why would you want my head a little bit bigger? It's already big enough.
You're
So
actually, so how it's coming off is when you talk, yours is maximized. When I talk, mine is being maximized.
oh really? Oh
Yep,
shit.
100%. So like here, I'll show you
Oh
here.
wow. Well, shit, man. That kind of sucks. I wasn't even paying attention to how I looked.
Yeah, you're all good. So yeah, that's basically I see the same thing on my side, and I was messing with it, and I was able to minimize my thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, dude, how do I maximize his again? So
Yeah.
whatever it is, we'll get all this going. But yeah, man, we're on the 2.5 minute warning. Cash, this is officially episode number 1 is in the books, brother. I really
Hell yeah.
this was fun, man. I want to really thank you.
It was, and honestly, it didn't even feel like that long. I think we talked about a lot of different things like we already knew we would. And hey, you know what? This will definitely be a good continuation for episode 2.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
and again, like I don't think there's really too many people that I would have wanted to ask to do a podcast with me.
Thank you.
It's
Likewise.
my honor, my pleasure,
Oh,
and you
thank
guys,
you. It's mine as well,
stay
dude.
tuned for more.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, we're gonna sign off, and
Do you have any like last minute thoughts?
I don't. I think I'm gonna save it for episode number two.
Okay.
We'll kind of just again, right? A nice game of tennis. We'll kick it all around episode number two, and then we can touch on some new points, and then maybe we can bring some news and whatever else in here, and
Yeah,
maybe also you guys in the comments if there's anything you want us to talk about, whether it's
absolutely.
relationships or politics or economy,
Yeah,
anything AI, whatever the heck it is. If there's anything that you specifically like or that you feel is something that you'd like to hear from us, please put it in the comments. We're looking forward to hear from you. But yes, Cash will post this video on his page. I will
yeah.
post this video on my page, and we'll connect. We'll continue to do this format here on. We'll go ahead and record, and then upload on YouTube, and then we'll go from there.
That sounds
Cash,
good. All right,
any
Kamal.
last minute thoughts from you? We have literally 1 minute left. What do you think?
No, not really. I mean, where do we go from here? I think we just, you know what, we have to be mad enough. At some point, we just have to say enough's enough. And and when
We
the
got we
people,
got to be mad, but we got to keep the channel.
yeah, yeah, that's the only thing is, how do you coordinate with people while still being mad? And not be a martyr and be taken out like in the beginning.
That is right. Well, guys,
So,
that's it for today.
all
We'll see you
right.
guys later, Cash. Have yourself a beautiful evening, and we'll
Yes,
see you for
sir.
episode
Thank
two.
you for the thanks for this opportunity. I enjoyed
Absolutely,
it
brother.
actually.
Take
All
care.
right, take it easy.
Bye
Yep.
bye.
Recording